The most vivid love you have ever felt was probably already dying, and some part of you knew. Not in a way you could say aloud, but in the way you held on to certain evenings a little too deliberately, the way you memorized things without meaning to. The brightness had a quality to it, the kind that only comes when something is almost gone. Camus wrote that we are never more awake than when we are pressed against the limit of things. He wasn't talking about love specifically. He was talking about mortality, about the absurd fact of being alive in a world that offers no guarantees. But love, the real kind, the kind that takes up all the space in your chest, seems to operate by the same logic. It sharpens you. It makes the ordinary almost unbearable in its beauty. Think about the specific texture of that time. Not love in the abstract, but that particular season with that particular person. The coffee cups, the inside jokes that had their own small grammar, the way they slept. You weren't just in love with them, you were in love with the version of yourself that existed near them. And somehow, underneath all of it, there was a hum, a frequency you couldn't quite name. That hum was time, or rather, your awareness of it, which is almost the same thing, because when love is settled and safe and going nowhere in particular, time disappears. You stop counting. You stop memorizing. You just live inside it like a room you assume will always be there. But when something is ending, even when you can't admit it, you start to notice the light differently. You start to be present in a way that is almost painful. This is not a comfortable thing to say, but it might be an honest one. The intensity you remember may not have been the love at its most alive. It may have been the love at its most afraid. Fear and aliveness are not opposites. They live very close together. Camus understood this. In the myth of Sisyphus, he argues that confronting the certainty of loss, not flinching from it, is the only way to be fully present. Not in spite of the ending, because of it. There's a word for the particular grief of losing something you still technically have. You are still together. Their jacket is still on your chair. Their name still appears on your phone. And yet something has shifted, a degree, a tilt, almost imperceptible. And you feel it the way you feel a change in air pressure before rain. You don't want to say it. Saying it would make it real. So instead, you love them harder, more deliberately, with a kind of ferocity that is really just mourning in disguise. And in that mourning, something strange happens. You see them. Actually see them. The way you hadn't in months. The way they reach for their glass. The way they laugh with their whole face, then recover like they forgot to be self-conscious for a second. You fall in love with details you'd been walking past. It's as though the ending puts a frame around everything, and suddenly it is, unbearably, art. Camus was not sentimental about this. He did not think the answer was to manufacture urgency, to keep love artificially volatile so it always feels like it might disappear. That's just anxiety wearing love's clothes. What he was pointing to was something quieter. That the confrontation with impermanence, when you let yourself actually feel it rather than manage it, produces a kind of presence that is its own form of grace. You cannot think your way to it. You can only stop looking away. What no one tells you is that the loves that ended too soon, the ones cut off by circumstance or cowardice, or just the wrong timing, those are the ones that don't fade the same way. They stay vivid. Not because they were better necessarily, but because they were never allowed to become ordinary. They were held at that pitch, that almost gone brightness, and then they stopped. And so, in memory, they are always almost there, always about to happen, always on the verge. You have probably carried one of those, a love that ended before it could settle into comfort, and so it never had the chance to disappoint you fully. It lives in you the way a song you only heard once lives, perfect because it was never overplayed. And there is a kind of grief in that, which is also a kind of preservation. You are keeping something alive by keeping it unresolved. And, if you are honest, that resolving it might have turned it into something ordinary and therefore beautiful, but gone. Camus believed the only serious philosophical question was whether life was worth living, given that it ends, given that it offers no explanation, no ultimate meaning. His answer was yes, not despite all that, but inside all that. You stay. You keep making dinner, keep reaching for their hand, keep showing up, knowing it won't last forever and staying anyway. That staying, he might say, is the whole point, not the guarantee. The staying without one. The love that makes you feel most alive is the one where some part of you has already felt the possibility of its absence, where you have held both, this person and the ghost of what it would be like to lose them at the same time. That doubleness is not a flaw in how you loved. It is not anxiety or attachment disorder or some failure of nerve. It is what it means to love something finite, which is all any of us have ever loved. So when you think of the one that burned brightest, when you wonder if what you felt then was real, or just intensity, or just fear, maybe there is a quieter way to hold that question. Maybe it was real precisely because you were afraid, because somewhere inside you already knew that this, like everything, would not stay. And knowing it, even without words, even without admitting it, made you look, made you actually look at them, at this, at the fragile, unrepeatable fact of it being now.